This is the third video for week 1. And an important concept in understanding just the basic process of research is to understand why there are so many flaws in some of these unscientific sources. What are the flaws in relying just on authority, just on common sense, on experience? There's a lot of different ways to learn stuff, and so I can tell you as a mother, I've got a tradition in my family that you tend to just look to the older women in your family to tell you how to raise your children and what to do. And that's one source of knowledge, and it's an important source of knowledge. So there's elements of tradition and authority. Some people say, well, it's just common sense. If a baby's hungry, you feed it. Or maybe you've kind of done just personally seen your baby react in a certain way, or television and certain articles will tell you what to do. So these are all important ways of gaining knowledge, and as a mother I can tell you that I use all of these in making the decisions that I make for my child. But there's also a role for research, and research, each of these has a flaw, and research isn't perfect by far. Research is subject to its own flaws, but research is yet another way of gaining knowledge, and so research should be included to try to kind of make up for some of the gaps that these might have, but research in and of itself will never be enough. If you can combine research to make up for the gaps, for example, that common sense may not yield, to make up for the gaps in your personal experience, and that's when you're going to have the best well-rounded knowledge. So some of the book talks a lot about some of these issues. So part of what you're going to want to do is be familiar with the concept of overgeneralizations, selective observations, and illogical reasoning. What are those, and why are they a threat to science? Science is always open to question. And so if some people say, you know, I'm frustrated, scientists said this, one day coffee is good, the next day coffee is bad. One day fat is good, the next day coffee is bad. And part of the issue is that, again, people tend to want science to kind of mimic and research to mimic some of the kind of very firm, traditional, this is the way things are, yes or no, that we might be used to. But in science, it is always open to question. There's never a 100% sure answer in research. Research is always willing to change based on the evidence, and of course it's done by humans, and so sometimes it's misinterpreted, sometimes something's missing, and so science, so unscientific sources can have flaws, but science has flaws as well. It's together that we want to evaluate them. So again, here's just a graph so that you understand. You'll be asked to apply these in some activities on the road, so you want to make sure you understand the difference in overgeneralizing from one case, just focusing on one case in selective observation, just the difference in objectivity. How do you see something versus how somebody else sees something, and is it possible that both truths could hold rather than one being the truth or another? Sometimes we just have new ideas that we don't want to get past. Recently you heard claims, for example, or at one point you heard claims about the role that tobacco had in causing cancer. And what you saw was a lot of authorities, the heads of tobacco companies, claiming that there was no relationship between tobacco use and cancer. And research, lots and lots and lots of research, gradually started overcoming public resistance to this idea and started to really let us critically evaluate, meaning really challenge the claims that people were making. And so hopefully we can also do this in social work when it comes to the government making claims about things and how to help people. Hopefully we can evaluate policies. Do they really help the poor? Are they really helping families, and how can they be better? So when we look at some of those errors previously, then you see that science often is used to kind of refute some of what we would consider common sense. Sometimes it doesn't hold up. So sometimes we don't observe accurately. Sometimes we're only looking, for example, we see one person that looks a certain way that commits a crime, and we start selectively only noticing those people, even if crimes are being committed by everybody. Sometimes we have one bad experience and we want to apply that to everybody. Sometimes we just fill in the gaps. There's a lot of evidence that looks, for example, at people that have been victims of crime that only get a partial glance at their attacker, kind of filling in the gaps of what that person looked like, when science shows that that's actually an incredibly inaccurate process. Sometimes we just, believe in luck, when we go and we buy a lottery ticket week after week, and we have a sense that somehow picking the same number every week is going to increase our chances of winning. Science shows us it really doesn't change from week to week. We have the same exact chance. So science, again, can help us. Science isn't going to tell us what to do, but it does help us kind of strengthen the knowledge that we use to make some of those decisions.